One mantra that we have on my team, which we are the ones that kind of create the programs and then form the partnerships with different entities, is we try to be as global when necessary, but local as much as possible. And I think that that is the secret to a lot of these, like introducing new skills, especially when there's like maybe some fear or hesitancy or skepticism. And so that's why we always partner with the local nonprofit or school or entity that has the trust of the community. We provide the top level, as much guidance as we can on the core content, but we always ask our partners to localize it to that local context,
Yes.
to that person.
Welcome to Edtech Insiders, the top podcast covering the education technology industry. From funding rounds to impact to AI developments across early childhood, K-12, higher ed, and work. You'll find it all here at Edtech Insiders.
Remember to subscribe to the pod, check out our newsletter, and also our event calendar. And to go deeper, check out Edtech Insiders Plus, where you can get premium content, access to our WhatsApp channel, early access to events, and back channel insights from Alex and Ben. Hope you enjoyed today's pod.
We have a super special episode of EdTech Insiders this week. We are here with Naria Santa Lucia. She's the general manager of Elevate at Microsoft. She leads global education, workforce, and skilling programs that have reached over 100 million learners with a focus on AI, cybersecurity, and sustainability. With over 20 years of experience across corporate, nonprofit, and international organizations, she's partnered with the UN, with the World Bank, and with Ministries of Education worldwide. A lawyer by training, Naria has been recognized as a Puget Sound Business Journal 40 Under 40 honoree. Naria, welcome to EdTech Insiders.
Thanks so much, Alex. It's wonderful to be here.
It's really, really great to speak with you. We have talked so many times on this podcast about Microsoft, about all of the amazing work you guys have been doing in AI to scale things, to build resources for everybody, but we've never actually talked to you. And I'd love to hear it from Microsoft itself. You know, Naria, you have said this is a unique moment in education and workforce development. We totally agree. What makes this moment different from previous shifts in the global skills landscape, and how is Microsoft approaching it?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it is truly a unique moment. And, I'm glad that you agree on that point. Just a few years ago, I remember we used to always go around and, talk about AI in this nebulous term, like, hey, we need people in data. We need people in machine learning. But now every single person has the power of that tool in their hands and at their disposal.
Yes.
And like any other great general purpose technology, right, whether it's electricity or the internet, or the personal computer, we think that generative AI and AI in general, those technologies are going to be in every single part, in every single way that we work, that we learn, that we live our daily lives. And so if one person has the skills and the ability to leverage those tools to supercharge their work, and the person next to them doesn't, we have a moment here. We can either make sure everybody has access, or we can create even more of a divide. And Microsoft, we have really, put the stake in the ground to say we are one of the creators of these technologies. We take that responsibility very seriously, and we really do want to make sure everyone can thrive in this increasingly AI economy. And so that's what we've done. It's kind of stunning, but our colleagues at LinkedIn, they did a study, and they're predicting that by 2030, 70% of the skills that people have in their jobs right now are going to change. And a lot of that is because of AI. So if we have that moment where, jobs, work, everything is shifting, let's make sure it's not going to just be the same people who get access to those tools. Let's really go deep. Dig deep. We can do this. There's no problem that we can't solve if we don't do it together. So that's what we're trying to do.
That emphasis on leveling the playing field, on creating upskilling opportunities, even leapfrog opportunities, where people can jump into these new skill sets and new jobs is so important. I love that you're citing different metaphors for the impact of AI. We do this all the time on the podcast. My preferred one is the internet. I think it's the internet because it's one of these things that really snuck up on us, right? The
Yep.
internet was around for a few years before there was email, before there were web browsers, before there was anything, and then suddenly it was part of everybody's job, and everybody had an email address, and everybody had a website, and they started seeing logos on every corporate site, and things started being
Yeah.
sponsored by big tech companies, and it just took over
Yeah.
everything. And I
Yeah.
think AI is the same way, and I think people see it coming this time. That's the
Yep.
difference, right? They're like, oh, this is going to be that, and we're going to have some of the same leaders, which is different than back then, right? Some of the same leaders
Yeah.
being the leaders in the AI age that were the leaders in the internet age.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you mentioning upskilling, this idea
Yep.
of leveling the playing field, creating pathways. Why has Microsoft put billions of dollars, literally,
Yep.
into this upskilling initiatives? And what do you see as these
Yep.
most critical skills that are going to replace the 70% of skills that we think may be disappearing?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, and just on the point about the internet, which I completely agree with you, but I just remember back in the days of, I'm dating myself, in college, we had Telnet and used
Wow.
to go online and try to do email. And then it was like a big spike where like suddenly there was commerce on the platform and
Right.
everything, and I just think this moment is like that, but it is incrementally so much faster. And I do think it's because there's ability to have people leverage a tool to be more productive, but also do more business, engage in commerce, and that is just going to completely skyrocket. So again, back to the importance, and I was just totally thinking about Telnet in my
Yeah.
mind as you're talking
Yeah.
about email. Um,
5G, CompuServe, the early AOL. I
exactly,
mean, it's wild.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But to your question about, just how do we, why are we even doing this, and we, like when you do look at these kind of the divides that have happened in the past or like different technologies, there's an amazing graphic that, we have at Microsoft that we look at constantly is like how electricity came on board hundreds of years ago. But when you look at the night sky, Africa is still dark for the most part. Many parts of Africa, many parts of the world are still dark. And so if we think about this way, again, because that underlying statement of this is going to change everything, every single pervasive part of every single person's life, we do need to make sure that people have those skills. I think we are a company that has partners that are incredible around the world. We are able to, through our skilling programs, partner with systems like the United Nations, like the International Labor Organization, like UNICEF, like UNESCO, like the World Bank. But we're also able to partner with tiny nonprofit organizations that are in community that are like helping, 5 farmers train and be more productive. So because of the reach of our partners and Microsoft coming along and enabling them with the ability to have the right content on the right, kind of how do you use AI? What are the different use cases? And then helping unlock different opportunities and really empowering those organizations. We know we can do it. And we do have that responsibility to do that. So that's truly why we're very much leaning in. And like you said, investing billions into the space.
It's amazing, and you're talking about these sort of public-private partnerships. You didn't
Yeah.
use that word, but
Yeah.
that's really in
Yeah.
there, right? I mean, UNESCO is but public or NGOs or small nonprofits around the world are public, and then Microsoft, one of the biggest companies on earth,
Yeah.
literally, unbelievably large private company. How do you see? First off, we haven't actually defined what Elevate is, so I'd love you
Yeah.
to tell us what the Elevate program is, and then talk a little bit about the nature of those sort of public-private partnerships and how Microsoft can sort of drive enormous scalability and power and enrichment into all of these different projects all over the world.
Yeah, great. Elevate for us is the way that we are coming forward to really meet this moment and help people transition and scale up for this AI economy in a nutshell. And we're doing that by bringing together our technology, and especially for schools and nonprofit organizations, as well as the skilling piece to make sure people have the skills to use that technology. And then I think this gets to your last point too, which is the policy part. Because we are the creators of technology, because we have partnerships around the world, we do know that, we can't do it alone, right? There's only so much one company can do. But if we can help governments think about the right conditions, the right ways that their people, like how can they invest in their citizens and their residents so that they're most effective? That's like, kind of teaching the person to fish, right? And
Right.
so policy is a really big part of what we're doing. And we think that if we can bring these things together and then do that in partnership, like that public-private partnership, that's where the magic will happen. There is a really great quote. I use it all the time. I heard it first from somebody at MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth, but it's, if you want to go fast, go with the private sector, because we're breaking fast, moving, breaking fast, whatever that quote is.
Yeah.
If you want to go deep, you got to go with nonprofit organizations, because they are the trusted members and partners in community. And if you want to go wide, you got to go with government. And there's no other way. At this moment, we have to all come together, all three, and do our part so that we can go fast to meet the moment. We can go deep and get it right and don't get it wrong, like some of the other transitions we've had, and also do it at scale.
Yeah. You've used a couple of metaphors here that are really sticking with me when you talk about the dark skies over
Yeah,
certain parts of the world, even though we've had electricity for 100+ years. You talk about, the person next to you, you getting the AI skills, but if you don't get them, then suddenly the divide is going to start moving. And, I think we're all sensing that this is that
yeah,
kind of moment where it's going to be a jetpack for certain people, certain
yeah,
countries, certain demographics, certain groups, and we can't let it. We're already in a time of a lot of inequality. How do we make this not push that even further?
yeah,
And of course, we want to think about that in education. Education in the United States is also very unequal. We have enormously different outcomes based on
yeah,
different groups, different types of schooling. AI is already reshaping education in so many different ways, from K-12 to corporate training to early childhood. When you look at the AI education landscape right now, we
Mhm.
talk about this, on this podcast all the time. What are some of the most exciting things you see when you look around the world? Who is doing it right? Who's sort of
Mm.
shining light to what AI in education could and should look like?
Yeah, first of all, I think a lot of people like I do love the energy around trying different things. So I think there is a theme of not, I can't necessarily say like, oh, it's this country or this group that's getting it right, but I think a lot of groups are really trying
Yeah,
and sometimes getting it wrong, but always taking that effort. One thing that I'm really proud of the whole community doing, and this is because we all stand on the shoulders of lots of different people, right?
yeah,
And the whole computer science movement, I think, is something that's amazing to look at, because people really came together on that movement. Code.org, the private
yeah,
sector, government, states, and we went state by state together and said, let's make CS count as a math or science credit,
yeah.
and that was amazing. And I think that coalition has come together in a really cool way. So I love seeing this Teach AI group that's come together.
You too.
They're thinking not just about like the people who create AI, but like also the people who like the teachers who use AI. So like, how can teachers teach about and with AI? And I love that they've used a coalition. So we're not starting from scratch. We don't have to start from scratch. Let's use a trampoline to leapfrog, to use a metaphor, versus like build it again. But what I love that they have done is they've come together, they've thought about this AI moment, they've created a framework, they went to the OECD and they got buy-in from multiple countries.
Yeah.
And now already we're like gotten such a fast start from computer science education around like AI. So I love seeing things like that at the framework level. But I also love like the teachers that we like meet with, in partnership with AFT. I love it. Like I saw a teacher do a demo about how they use Copilot and the prompts that they've created to help like with lesson planning. And they just, they geek out on it.
Yeah.
I just love seeing that. And and teachers too are trying different things, right? And trying different ways of flipping the classroom, or, kind of, um, uh, for the basic things like writing emails to parents and things like that. Those are all great, but I'm getting very excited about the ways that our teachers are superpowering their pedagogy and changing how they teach. with these great tools, these powerful.
Such great points. Both of those are great points. I totally agree with you. We've had Pat Young Pratt from Teach AI. We just talked to the
Wow.
CPO of
He's one of my favorite people.
It's amazing. And I mean, that coalition is unbelievable. I remember going to that
Unbelievable.
site and being like, there's like 50 countries listed on this coalition site. And it just started. Like, what is this amazing? And then we talked to code.org just last week. We just talked to the chief product officer of code.org, and they're already launching their hour of AI. I mean,
Yeah,
building
yeah,
on the momentum of the hour of code movement. And as you say, all the work that's been done over time to try to bring coding into the classroom.
yeah,
Some with a lot of success, not as much as I think that we wanted still, because they're still pulling, but it has been a lot of success. So
yeah,
it's really exciting to see all the learnings being put into
yeah.
action with this totally new
Exactly.
topic. It's amazing. And then
Exactly.
just to riff for a second on your point about the teachers, one of the things that's so interesting about this moment is in the early internet or even early electricity, the people who were geeking out, to use your word,
Hmm.
were the geeks. They were people who like knew how to write in machine code, or knew how to wire up their own lights or things like that. And I think what's so interesting about this moment is that AI is sort of by nature, because the user interfaces are so accessible,
Yeah,
anybody can geek out. I mean, no matter who you are, you can actually go in and build tools. You can ask it to do things that nobody in the world has thought to ask it to do before, and just do it. You don't need much training. And I think
exactly.
that creates a really interesting moment. It's unlike some of the other ones where you'd have to be like a really deep in the tech to do much, until
Yep,
there were blog sites or social media. It took a lot of work. You had to learn a lot to be able to make a website. That's not true now. You can do
totally.
things today that you've never thought of with AI. So when you think about all that power that is getting into
Hmm.
the hands of everybody, frankly, right? That's how I think about it. How do you think about your training programs and your approach? You've
Yep,
created these huge libraries of resources.
yep,
You putting billions of dollars in
yep.
with all of these partnerships. How are you helping people sort of get the courage to get their hands dirty,
Yeah,
try things, and geek out and take shots, as they think about, hey, what is my job going to look like in the next 10 or 20
yeah.
years?
Yeah. No, you're like, I love your energy and all the great points you made. And I will have to say, because me too, like you said in my bio, like I'm a lawyer by training, a
Yeah.
liberal arts person, solid, like barely made it out of calculus. But I'm signed up to do a training to build my own agent. And I'm super excited I'm gonna build an agent that's gonna be able to wait in line for my concert tickets, when I go to the
Exactly. There you
so
go.
like that's amazing. I have no CS background or knowledge, but I'm gonna be able to build that. So I agree. Like this is it. Like it opens the doors to so many things that we never dreamed. I never dreamed could be even possible for myself, much less like my kids and other young
Yes.
people around the world. One mantra that we have on my team, which we are the ones that kind of create the programs and then form the partnerships with different entities, is we try to be as global when necessary, but local as much as possible, local
Yeah.
when possible. And I think that is the secret to a lot of these, like introducing new skills, especially when there's like maybe some fear or hesitancy or skepticism. And so that's why we always partner with the local nonprofit or school or entity that has the trust of the community. We provide the top level, as much guidance as we can on the core content, but we always ask our partners to localize it to that local context,
Yes.
to that person. As much as you can get it down to the teacher, and even better, the elementary school teacher, or even better, the second grade teacher that has this kind of life, this
Yeah.
kind of span of their professional year, and we can provide training to that, the better. So that's kind of the mantra and the work that we try to take in. So we have global partnerships that are really kind of a big scale, but we also partner in 21 countries depth and find local partners on the ground, which is definitely a way. I think it's a winning formula, and one that we found to be very, very, very successful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting to think about all those partnerships, and as you say, localizing to different contexts, to different
Mhm.
needs, to different existing careers, where people are like, what could I do with AI that would help me in my job tomorrow? Well, that's a question that it literally can be answered for almost any job already.
Yes.
but you have to actually meet people where they are. You can't say, "Oh, we're going to do a project and it's just creating an AI X." It has to be, no, what is actually going to help you, and how do we help you help yourself with this tool? And then that's how you're going to actually get excited and get hooked. And we just see that over and over again with people who like stayed up all night to figure out if it could do this certain thing, and then from then on they're like, oh, okay, it can do it. That means I'm in. I'm sold. I'm going to start using this for.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? So, Microsoft is a technical company. You mentioned Copilot is an absolute, hugely used tool, especially for coding support, among other
Yep.
things. And I think, we're going to see this spread in the future, even if AI, as with the electricity or the internet or the computer, even if it's part of every job, there will still be this wide spectrum of how it's being used. There'll be people
Mhm.
creating new models, creating agent networks,
Yep.
creating these, and then there'll be people using it to, do existing work or to do, or to train the models, or,
Yep.
there's still a spectrum. I'm curious how, when I know it's early, but like,
Yeah.
you start to think about this spectrum of different skills and how AI is going to be incorporated into different job segments or into different types of future work. How far can we look ahead to try to make sense of that? Is it starting to emerge what that sort of taxonomy of skills will be, or is it moving so fast that we just have to, every 3 months we got to tear it up and do it again?
I think it's a mix of like moving so fast, and we have to be very responsive and take a look over and over again. I think LinkedIn is putting out a quarterly report right now on kind of the ways that like jobs are being augmented,
Right.
or the skills are being augmented, or kind of how jobs are being.
Automated, right? That's
Yeah,
the big part on
exactly,
automation
exactly,
versus augmentation.
exactly. And you'll kind of see like Karen Kimbrough, who's their chief economist, always laughs like the most like kind of safe job right now is like a locksmith from generative AI,
Right.
which is interesting, right? Like you cannot augment being a locksmith at this point with Gen AI.
That's
Um,
crazy.
so I think a lot of people are putting out really interesting research and things, and how we're kind of thinking about the three audiences that we need to really, help and help with that training are the users, like basic users, like knowledge workers, like people who have kind of you're not a technical person, you're a business user, and that you need to like understand how to leverage these tools in your day-to-day job to be more productive. So that's one group that we were very much thinking about and designing for. The
Yeah.
second group is the developers and the creators of the tools, because we do think and continue to think like, we need to make sure that the language models are, trained by people from diverse backgrounds, that they have different life perspectives. Language is a huge thing. For example, like we need to make sure like that there are models in Korean, in Swahili, like, so that could be, we need to make sure that we're actually reaching people so that those that want to and are inspired to become AI developers have the ability to do that. The third group that we are actually thinking about that may not be as like top of mind for people, but is really important, are like how do businesses, how do firms, how do schools, how do nonprofits take the technology and actually integrate it into their workflow? Because it could be like one person using AI over and over again, but if you don't have a system around it, if you don't do that responsibly, like that firm may not fully utilize AI to the way that they could. So we're also thinking about that group as well, and designing for them, and also making sure we have free content available, we have credentials and certificates available, that we have a place where people can train.
That is fantastic. Yeah, that sort of organizational approach, the policy
Mm-hmm.
approach, the resourcing approach. And
Yep.
again, I know I feel like I'm going back to this a lot because I think it's such a strong metaphor for this, but this was also true in the early internet age, right?
Yes.
You have people at individual companies saying, we need a website to sell our widgets. And but if the powers that be were like, what's a website? Why would
Yeah.
we do that?
Exactly.
What are you even talking about? You have a problem there, right? And I
Yeah.
think that sort of top down, bottom up approach to what is
Yes.
our AI strategy is huge. I love that you're
Yeah.
looking at it from both sides.
Yeah.
And then, I think there's a sense we're talking about leapfrogging and equity. There's a sense in which AI might be part of everybody's life, but if you know it in certain kinds of ways, right? If you could start your own business using just AI or automate something and make, be a 3-person company that operates like a 100-person company, that's a huge advantage. You could do something really amazing. And I think people
Totally.
see that mirrored in the coding revolution as well, right? All these
Yep.
these tech people who started. Instagram was like 12 people or something when it was bought by Meta
Amazing.
years ago. It was tiny, but it had this huge outsized effect, and AI is going to have that same kind of effect. So I guess my question there is, as you think about the difference between the user and the developer persona,
Yeah.
how might we get to a place where we don't, we accidentally replicate the same issue where the people who are users now stay users and the developers stay developers, and there's sort of no crossover.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. And I do think it goes back to kind of even what you were saying before, that like being a developer now is very different. It means different things
It
because,
does.
like I think I forget who it was. It said, coding English is the new coding language.
Yeah,
Or,
Andre Karpathy for the
yeah, I
Nobel.
mean, but I think it's
Yeah,
true. So I do think there is a little bit more of like, like look at me, I'm a user, but I'm going to develop an agent using these tools and Copilot apps, which
exactly.
is awesome. And I think, actually that's really good feedback, and I'm going to take it back to my team too and see if we can make more connections and make sure we have like kind of pathways between the two personas and audiences
Well,
for
just to your
sure.
point about the 70% of skills
Yeah,
being becoming obsolete, it's like in that world, you don't want that same situation we've been talking about. How do we retrain truck drivers to become coders? That's been like the
exactly.
thing we've all been talking about. It's
Exactly.
like that's a tall order, and I don't think we've actually cracked that.
Yeah,
So how might we stay
I
early?
know. And many of us tried to do that. I'm not gonna
Yes,
lie. We were like, wait, these are the jobs. You're a truck driver. I don't know anything about like your passions or your skills, but you go do that. And AI is actually a way where if that truck driver really does want to do it, I think even just the way that you can learn using AI with
yes.
tutors, with like, all different ways, like there is more of a plausible pathway to do that and make
There
that
really
connection.
is. And you don't
Yeah.
have to start from the hello world and start from this like I feel like I have no idea what's going on. That's I think one of the really exciting parts for us about AI and education is that you
Exactly.
can actually start doing things you want to do right from the get-go as you start
Yeah.
playing with AI rather than, someday you're doing building tic-tac-toe for the next 3 weeks, but
Or
someday you
Pong.
might be able to do
Pong.
a song. Right. Someday you may be able to do something. Yeah, no, very much on the same page here. I'm happy to hear that you're thinking about those crossovers. So
Yeah. Yeah.
tell us what's next for Elevate. I mean, things are moving so quickly, and
Yeah.
Microsoft is one of the absolute giants in the field. It's been sort of a big part of the ecosystem since day one. What kind of long-term impact do you
Yeah.
want to have with these global skilling initiatives? You're working with the UN. You're thinking
Yep.
truly globally. What kind of impact would you like to have if you could put on your future?
Yeah. I love that. So this year we're like super anchoring on credentials.
Yeah,
And the reason why, like, and we're trying to do like kind of a little bit of a handoff into up the value chain, I would say, in like a workforce, like kind of mentality. Um, we really like, we were training many people on AI last year, and some of them, we're more like, come one, come all, come quickly, just get excited. That was like the energy we are trying to build a few years ago. And this year we're really thinking about what are the skills that people are learning for what roles, teachers, and we're really anchoring on that to like teachers, nonprofit professionals, government workers that focus on like education and workforce as well. We really want to think about those engines of change and how can we help these individuals. And we want people to learn and then have some kind of credential that they can signal their learning acquisition to the world. Put that on LinkedIn, put that on their resume so that they have that kind of
great idea.
full experience. So that's where we're really focusing, and we're actually interesting because we're part of the Teach AI Coalition and work closely with
Yeah,
Code.org on many things. And then now we're working with ISTE,
yeah,
ASCD, and we're going to be creating skilling content with them that's related to that framework with a credential
great.
for teachers. We're going to do that in the social impact space for nonprofit change makers, and then we'll do that for government employees as well who are in education and workforce space.
I
So
love it.
that's a big bet for us this year. And then my guess is that in the future, as we think about this, we're going to be thinking about livelihood opportunities and really doubling down on that, because I do think, like, to your point, as you were talking, I was actually thinking about a woman in our Women in Digital Business program with the ILO in Africa
Yeah,
who basically got a device from one of our connectivity partners, a mobile device, and is starting to sell her artisan wear and using AI to make the pictures more, pop, like writing the copy,
yep,
and this is a woman who is like changing the game for her family. because she's able to use his technology and unlock that opportunity. And that's where I think where I would love to see us head more and more, like bringing that together, the skilling, the credential, and then the economic
Yeah.
opportunity, which is so
So,
important.
I love hearing that. And I think credentials are so in a fast moving space. Credentials are so important because there's so little signal for anybody in
Right.
the space that
Right.
what it means to be knowing AI or using
Yep.
AI or being AI literate or an AI change maker. I don't know the names of your certificates, but like, without an authority, and Microsoft is one of very few big tech authorities, especially in conjunction with
Yep.
STASCG for teachers and things
Yes.
like that. Without an authority saying this is what it means to be an AI, an AI using teacher or somebody who's at this level of AI literacy, nobody knows. I have a
Right.
follow-up question for you though.
Yeah.
Top
Great.
down, bottom up, right? You're talking about the organizational level
Yep.
and the individual level. Are you thinking about things like how might a school system reward people who have that AI,
Yep.
AI certification, or how might they build systems that actually provide more professional development hours or more incentive? Because
Yes.
that sandwich is really, top down and bottom up together really accelerates the change. And if
Yes.
only on the individual level, you get the certification, but it doesn't change. It doesn't turn into revenue or changes in your job.
Yeah.
There's still something missing.
And that's totally where the policy piece comes in play
Right.
for us,
Makes
right?
sense.
It's like, hey, what are and actually they're in the Middle East. We were just talking to like we did a Minecraft workshop on like Minecraft. They have that agent and chicken and that AI curriculum. I don't know if you know about this,
It
but
does.
there's yeah, look, it's actually pretty cute. But there we were kind of having a Teams meeting just yesterday with a group in Jordan, and they love these trainings because the teachers actually in some Middle East countries and I think other countries too, by getting these credentials, they actually get bumps in their pay.
That's what you need. That's what you need.
And that's how you like incent the system. So
Yeah.
we also have a program with for our educator community, the Showcase Schools and Microsoft Innovative Education Educator Program. And in some of these countries, we're seeing these huge spikes of people signing up because they're getting pay bumps. And
Yes.
I mean and what that means for that school then is that they have access to all of the ways that our first products and like information about what's coming, and they get a chance to tell us through our educator community what we should be doing better. So like this, we can do this. It's not rocket science, you know what I mean?
Doable, but it's a
It
system change. It's a big change.
is, yeah.
So I'm going to push you one more follow-up question because I'm so
Okay,
curious.
perfect.
Are you thinking about certification at the institution level? Can you be an AI certified school or an AI certified NGO? And are there incentives there? And I can imagine a world in which,
Yeah,
if you're a school and 60% of your teachers are AI certified, then you're an AI certified school. And if you get that, you get additional money from the
yeah.
school. And like now you're talking about a really robust incentive system.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we definitely like try to at the institution level through our showcase schools do that. But I think that we can do as many certifications or people, but you have to tie it to what the government connection, right? Actually, and this is what we did in Mexico too. We have our teacher training certification, and Mexico, Brazil, like we actually infused it into the teacher training model. You have to connect it into the government,
Makes sense.
into the system. The U.S. is tough because
I hear you. Mexico and
it's
Jordan
like
are moving
schools are
faster.
so
It's like, oh man,
localized, and that's
right.
good. You know what I
No,
mean? Like I believe in that. I believe we should have local school control, and like that's really important. But it's hard sometimes to move these things at scale. So it's just that balance of how do you like keep it local, but also take these best practices and do it at scale. I think that's
totally.
somewhere private sector we can all help by kind of sharing insights, by funding. There's lots of different ways. I think that we do have a role in helping too.
Yeah, but I mean, it's such a great point that at a country level, at a Ministry of Education, at a country, they often actually can move quicker and be
Yeah.
sort of more aligned to creating those top-down incentives.
Yeah.
It's a little trickier, the federation that we
Yeah.
have in the U.S. I know we talk about this on the podcast a lot. I personally, I won't get into it. I've ranted about how we should have a Ministry of Education in the U.S., but I know that's a controversial.
Well, grass is always greener on the other side, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But it is really interesting to hear when you're saying, in Jordan, where they have incentives
Yeah,
for their financial incentives for being certified, you see giant jumps in certification. It
yeah,
makes so much sense.
yeah,
And I feel like even if we're going to keep local control, I think that could still create an amazing environment where areas, districts, states
totally.
that are like, we want to be a leader in AI. Let's lean in.
Yeah,
We're going to get X million from X, benefactor if we can become AI certified. Let's do it. I mean,
yeah,
that's something really exciting, and I think it's a different way of thinking about systemic change that feels just very practical. Um,
yes,
you've talked about balancing localization and local needs with this. Obviously, you're thinking very globally. I mean, we've talked about, I think, 10 different countries already in
yeah,
this podcast. What I'd love to just like drill in on that a little bit. You've given some great examples of it, but as you're thinking about working with, ISTI and ASCD, for
hmm,
example, or the UN, which works across states or
yeah,
across countries, and then saying, but what about that African entrepreneur who needs to be able
yeah.
to sell her art? Like it's two different ideas to hold in your head at the same time. I'm curious how you think about that spectrum and how you sort of put the pieces together, because it can be complicated.
Yeah, it can be complicated, and there are trade-offs. If we could do everything everywhere all at once, like we would absolutely do it, and we can't boil the ocean. And after like a lot of, I think the strategy that we do believe does work is to like our mission. Is like we're not at the center. We're enabling the partners, right? And so we are able to kind of create those offerings that can enable UNESCO's of the world, but also can land at like your local 4-H school.
Right.
Like we come with that content and our expertise. They run with the community because that's what they're really great at. And I didn't answer this question, but I wanted to come back to it because you talked about like what are the skills, right? And like
Yeah.
how are skills going to change.
Yeah.
And I always I love the work that our colleagues at LinkedIn are doing on human skills and the uniquely human skills in this age of AI, because we know all the AI skills are like, in high demand and growing, but we're seeing those human skills growing at exactly the same rate: communication, collaboration, compassion, empathy, working on a team. Those things are so important. And that's what like local partners bring, because they know the local context and like what is like that, the cultural aspects, like the team building aspects that we need to train on. So that's why I don't think we can't be everywhere all at once. We have a lot of free offerings that anywhere everywhere all at once can access, so please go and access those. Opportunity.linkedin.com is a good place to start. But I think that through partnerships, we certainly can reach and do a lot of the work that we aspire to do.
Yeah, it's a terrific point. And, I think sometimes I'll speak for myself. I forget about Microsoft has such an enormous sort of umbrella reach. It's made some very strategic acquisitions over the years, including LinkedIn and
Yep.
and Minecraft, which you both
Hmm.
mentioned, but
Yeah.
as well. I mean, and I
And
think
GitHub.
I, and GitHub, right? No small thing at all. That's how Git Copilot is
Yeah.
absolutely ubiquitous. So, I guess this is a very high ranging question, but let's start with the Minecraft example, because I think I didn't respond to that, and I'd like to. Minecraft is one of very few you sort of universally known game building worlds, engines, places where kids gather and love to be all over the
Yes.
world. There is already a pretty robust Minecraft for education community and sets of tools. I didn't know about the chicken, but I'm going to check that out. But when you think about a surface area like that, you say we are Minecraft. We are LinkedIn. We are
Yeah.
places where millions and millions and millions of people are every day. How do you think about instilling some of this AI training and this sort of preparation mentality? Like, the world is changing, and we have all these tools and
Yeah.
resources to help you. How do you think about getting those into those properties, into those surfaces, without scaring people off, without changing
Yeah.
the experience, or I'm curious how you think about that, because it feels like a vital question for Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. And in and it is truly exactly because they are like those places where like people are coming and it's like a beloved community. My kids like grew up on Minecraft, and my daughter is like aspiring to be indie developer because of all the Minecraft worlds that she created. You know what I mean? So like it's an amazing place where like people, they know that when they go there, the experience that they have will be a positive one. And so it's been a great way for us to like put in some concepts, and the Minecraft education team has done a great job of doing that, whether it's around sustainability or cybersecurity, the online safety bit. That's really like they have great curriculum about that. And then now more recently with AI, I just think it's like we're so lucky to have these kind of properties in our portfolio, because like millions of people can go there. And again, it's like it's part of that responsibility we have. And I do know every single business unit within Microsoft is really like thinking about how do we bring everybody forward, how do we help everyone, and especially in this AI moment, and do that through the tools that we have.
I mean, what a combination! I can imagine doing a contest of who can build an agent that builds amazing Minecraft worlds, and then you can the winner goes on, or the 100 winners, and it's 13 to 18. The winners get to post that on their LinkedIn and become LinkedIn famous, and they become immediate that. And then
Well, you should have been at our workshop yesterday, Alex. Like,
I'm sure you're thinking all of that. It is so. I mean, what a moment, right? What a moment where you're like, the world is changing again. When we see it happening this time, we are ahead of it this time. And you're sitting there with these unbelievably exciting communities of practice and beloved properties and all of these resources and all of this money. I mean, let's talk about billions of dollars. Last question for you.
Okay.
Part of what inspired this conversation were some of these incredible announcements about the literally billions of dollars that Microsoft is putting into these readiness projects between AI and cybersecurity and sustainability. How does a company like Microsoft decide internally to double down on a project like this versus more product development in GitHub?
Yeah, I mean, all things are important, and product development and GitHub and everything else will be very important. But I do know that there is like what we've been talking about all day today, right? It's like there is this moment that is a huge moment of transition. We are a company that really needs to, we believe it to our core that we want to empower every person and every organization to achieve more. And the every part, like you can't get to every without helping schools, without helping nonprofits, without thinking about government. And so it's like it's absolutely makes sense that we would make this big commitment. And I'm so proud to like work for a company that's thinking in these ways. And hopefully, working in partnership with these different organizations, and hopefully meeting the moment as we have a responsibility to do.
The every. It's all about the every. I love that. Wonderful. It's been such a great conversation. Naria Santa Lucia. I'll try that again.
You got it.
Almost got it. Naria Santa Lucia is the general manager of Elevate at Microsoft, leading global education, workforce, and skilling programs that have reached over 100 million learners already, with a focus on AI, cybersecurity, and sustainability. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a really fascinating conversation. Thanks for being here with us on EdTech Insiders.
Thanks so much, Alex. Really enjoyed it. You're coming to our workshop next, too.
I'll be there.
You got great ideas.
Thanks for listening to this episode of EdTech Insiders. If you like the podcast, remember to rate it and share it with others in the EdTech community. For those who want even more EdTech Insider, subscribe to the free EdTech Insiders newsletter on Substack.